So Phalaenopsis aren't the only type of orchids we have here in the Garden of Eden. We have quite a few dendrobiums as well. And you can see that many of them have flower spikes that are getting ready to open. This one has a little flower that just did it by itself, and a lot of new growth. This is a little tiny orchid spike. We've got a new shoot growing there. This is interesting. This was a orchid that decided to grow down and into the pot, and so I had to upend the pot, the whole orchid plant, to free that one growth so that it could come outside the pot. I've never seen anything like that. So I'm going to come around this side so you can see what I mean. So this was all growing straight, and this one piece started to grow down and into the pot in the opposite direction. So when I noticed it, I had to pull kind of everything out and let it free. It continued to grow, and now it's got a flower spike on it. And so that'll be pretty once that opens. Got quite a bit of new growth on this orchid. And then this one has a new shoot coming off the bottom. Certainly not to be outdone, this Cattleya orchid has two new shoots on it, and that'll be very pretty there once those pop up. That's a beautiful flower that it produces, and I can't wait to show you that. And then next to it, this was the little one that we got recently, and it's got a shoot also growing. That's a better view there of the new growth. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the garden. Today we're going to focus on orchids again, and this time I'll show you a couple things. First, my vandas, which tend to be a thorn in my side and I can never get them to flower or do anything. I have been fertilizing them lately with a spray fertilizer from Miracle Grow, and I did some research and found that there are some other better orchid fertilizers also that I can use. Oh, lizard shells. Wow. Oh, there's the mama. Oh, there's a baby. Oh. Well, now we know where lizards come from. Oh, there he went. So you never know what kind of stuff's going to happen in the garden. I was over here talking about my vandas and got distracted because there were some lizard eggs hatching. Pretty cool. Not sure where I left off, but basically with my vandas I never can get them to flower, and so I have tried some additional fertilizer. I'm going to buy some different fertilizer that's of a better quality, and I covered their roots with orchid moss now in an attempt to keep them a little bit more moist. So more to come on those. We'll see how they progress. I've got 3 vandas here and 1 inside the house that I need to figure out what to do with. So we'll see what happens. I was given this beautiful what used to be a beautiful Dendrobium nobile, and it was just gorgeous. It had this long flow of flowers, and I had no idea how to take care of it, and I basically killed it, and you can see it is practically dead, with the exception of these little things that keep growing. And these are called keikis. K-E-I Kies. I think I spelled that right. But you could see all the little buds that just keep coming off of what look like dead stalks. So the other day, one broke off and fell on the ground, and I picked it up and I kind of attached it here to the tree with a little sphagnum moss and some hideous zip ties that I'll change out for some wire once I get it. But we'll see how that does. And so I did some Googling and found out that these are all basically pups that you can very easily remove by twisting off once they get a little bit bigger. And you can repot these and they'll become more dendrobiums. Without realizing it, I also had another Dendrobium nobile, which I'll show you a picture of here. It does absolutely fantastic. So obviously I know how to take care of them. I just didn't really know what that other one was. This one also had a big keiki that was growing off of it. And I just thought, oh, that's pretty cool. It's just a piece that came off and it started to lower its roots into the plant. Well, following the directions of another YouTuber that I saw, I broke it off. And here you can see how extensive the root system was. It actually had gotten all the way down into the pot and had started to attach to some of the medium. And so this is a really healthy pup, keiki. And so my plan now is to propagate it and start afresh. So then I'll have an extra whole orchid. So in doing that today, I started off with a random pot that I had sitting over there by the bird feeder. And one thing that I did learn was to clean the pot with a fungicide so that whatever had been in there before and whatever maybe is growing in there gets killed, and this is basically clean. So I'll show you that. So this is the fungicide I keep around. I have a couple of oleander, plumeria, frangipani that always need a dose of fungicide. So I like to keep this around. It's easy to use. Hook it up to the hose sprayer and rinse that pot out real good with it. Let it dry out. And that's perfect. Find that my dendrobiums seem to do really well when I put lava rock in the base. So that's kind of what I've always done, and that's what I plan to do here. So, and again, I just buy whatever the cheap lava is at Home Depot. I don't buy any kind of special anything, but Vigo's a good brand and seems to do pretty well. So and then I'm going to throw in some potting mix. The Dendrobium specific potting mix doesn't have any moss in it. It just has the bark and a little bit of lava rock and the charcoal. Okay, that looks pretty good. I did a layer of rock, a layer of mix, a layer of rock, a layer of mix. And I think it's time to try to get it in there. So I'm probably going to need to stake this so that it stays upright. Let me go get a stake. Okay, so I stuck 2 stakes into it just to kind of balance it out, and then I'm going to put a little tie around the 2 just to kind of attach them. Okay, there we go. Now I'm just going to backfill with a little bit more mix of the Dendrobium blend. And there we go. Alrighty. I added a little bit more lava rock, and I think this looks great. And we're going to put this over here where the Quakers can all enjoy it. I'm going to put it on the little bench. They seem to agree. It's always fun to hunt for new growth in the garden. This Cattleya orchid has a small little growth there. And if you remember, about a week ago or so, we had shown the new growth of this little shoot coming off our apple blossom dendrobium. That's going to put out a flower spike as soon as it's strong enough. We also had seen that the large Cattleya had 2 new spikes or shoots off of it, and look at them, they're doing really well. Our encyclia that had gotten eaten up by that cutworm is doing quite well, and it has 2 new shoots off of it, and so those will eventually spike out a flower when they get a little bit bigger. Not sure if I showed this little guy. It's actually I believe a Catalonia. It's a Cattleya hybrid, and you can see it's doing well. It's got some new growth there. The dendrobium pieces off of the Dendrobium nobile that we had potted, I had to move into the screened area because they were getting a little sunburnt. Same with this little shoot, if you remember that from another video. And the original parent plant moved in here as well. Got a little too hot for it now that it's basically summer. The Oncidium is looking good. And the Vanda that we had planted still has that same flower spike on it. And that will continue to grow until we have a nice flower. The dendrobiums love this time of year. They like the heat and the sun. So you can see we've got a fresh spike going to open up there, as well as these little purple guys. Mark asked me this morning, how did we have purple flowers and yellow flowers from the same plant? Well, the answer is it's not the same plant. If you look in here in all the mix, you'll notice that some of the dendrobium has kind of this reddish stripe to the leaf. That's one of the plants. And then you have the other plant that has more of just the hard green leaf. That's a different plant. And so when this was purchased, whoever had potted this mixed in 2 different dendrobiums. Same with this one. So if you think about it, we've got these beautiful light colored flowers mixed in with these beautiful dark colored ones. One of my smaller dendrobiums has started to open. Isn't that pretty? Remember this oddity that we looked at where I had to pull it out because this shoot started to grow down into the basket and I had to pull all this up so that the shoot would be freed? Well, it's doing quite well. It's actually starting to open. Get a shot of that. Oh, what a beautiful flower. And it also shot out a secondary spike from the original area. All of our Phalaenopsis are starting to wilt. Not all of them, but most. It is a very hot time of year for them, and they don't typically last well into the summer. So we'll start to see these wilt back, but we'll enjoy them while they're still here. So what happens when you have a very large orchid that's in a very large basket, but it has outgrown the basket and is basically attaching to the ground? You repot it. But you need a bigger base than what you originally have. If I were to try to remove this orchid from the basket that it's currently in, I would disrupt all of those roots and potentially damage the plant. So instead, I bought a big enough pot that I can set the whole thing right inside there. So let's take a look at potting this into that. Always, 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 the first thing that we do is put some holes in the bottom. So thanks to Mark, we have holes. Let's figure out how much base we're gonna need so that this kind of sits up high enough. So we're gonna have to backfill the bottom with some lava rock and mix. So we're gonna need a couple of ingredients. The first one is our lava rock. We'll put that down in the base, and that'll add some nice weight at the bottom too, because with the amount of flowers on this, it can get very top heavy. And then of course, our go-to Dendrobium mix. So I'm going to start with the lava rock, add some Dendrobium mix, layer it a little bit, and then we'll set the basket down in the pot and go from there. We filled our bottom with a good bit of the mix and the lava rock, and now we're at the perfect height to let that sit right like that, and that's kind of at the perfect height. So now we're going to backfill around it and use the mix, of course, and more lava rock. And so you see what we've done. We haven't ruined the roots by trying to rip this basket apart, and we've created a really large pot for this to continue to grow, because what will happen eventually, this basket, the wood, will just become part of the medium and disintegrate over time. But all of these roots will continue to navigate down into the potting mix that's below it and continue to grow. So a little more rock was added there, and now I'm going to take my one-handed approach to backfilling all around it. Now I could have removed the wire, but what I'll probably wind up doing is using the wire as a brace. You know, as new things, shoots, whatever come, I can attach the wire to help brace like I did here. So I left it. It's not really visible when you step back and look at it. Oops, all the birds are taken off. And so I left it. Not that I'll use it, because I'm never going to hang this. This is going to sit just like it is. And now my Dendrobium has much more room to grow, and I didn't have to damage the roots or anything. And just to show you what I meant, you can see where the roots were starting to attach to the ground, and that's obviously not good. So we'll scrape that off before we set this in place. But this is ready to go now, and it's going to be very happy once again. Here's a random tip for all my gardeners here in South Florida. When you've got a hose sitting out in the sun, that water gets very hot. And so before you use it on your plants, you want to let all of the water that's super hot flow out of it, so that you're not watering your plants with 100-degree water. So help with your evaporation level of your pool by spraying it right into the pool until it's cool enough. And then of course switch over to something that's not going to harm the plant. And because we've got lava rock that's fresh down in there, and I didn't rinse it, which a lot of people probably would rinse their lava rock first, but doesn't bother me, and it rinses out eventually. See that? That's what I mean. Got a little bit of lava rock flooding out of there. Okay, it's in its new home, and it's going to do really well. So the next orchid I'm probably going to wind up repotting is this one, because I have to figure out what to do here. Obviously I can't just leave it like this, and I don't know if I can remove this foul growing spike. I'm obviously going to leave it for now because it's got this beautiful flower spike on it, and I certainly don't want to mess with it. But there's got to be some sort of a solution, because this is not it. So we'll do some research and see what we find.